In a world full of loud gestures and surface-level flattery, there's a quiet compliment that reaches deeper than any praise about her looks, and it often takes her by surprise. It doesn't objectify, doesn't flatter, just toy. It connects deeply, respectfully, and genuinely. Most men overlook it. The ones who don't, they stay in her mind long after the conversation ends. Because this compliment doesn't just make her smile, it makes her feel seen, and that feeling stays with her. Let's break down with this one simple phrase can build more emotional attraction than any pickup line ever could, and how to use it with honesty, maturity, and presence. Number 1, it honors her mind, not just her body. In today's world, compliments are often aimed at how a woman looks, her appearance, her style, her smile. These are the things that usually get noticed first. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with appreciating someone's physical presence, something powerful happens when a man goes beyond that. When you say, "I admire the way you think," you're honoring something far more meaningful, her mind. This isn't about being clever for clever's sake. It's about showing her that you recognize her thoughts, her reflections, and her unique way of processing the world around her. And that kind of recognition touches something deeper than any comment about her appearance ever could. Let's explore why this matters so much and why it often resonates with women in ways even they don't expect. 1. Her mind is where her real identity lives. A woman's thoughts, beliefs, and values are not just parts of her, they are her. That's where her sense of purpose lives. That's where her sense of right and wrong is formed. That's where her intuition, her insight, and her emotional strength takes shape. So when you compliment her thinking, you're saying, "I see who you are beneath the surface, and I value that person." That's powerful because it validates her true identity. You're not admiring something she was born with or something temporary. You're appreciating what she's cultivated and chosen for herself too. It tells her that you're listening. Really listening. It's easy to offer shallow praise. It's much harder and far more meaningful to listen carefully to what she says, how she says it, and what she means behind her words. When you reflect back something thoughtful, like "That's such an interesting way to look at it," or "You really have a way of explaining things clearly," you're reassuring her that her mind has value in your eyes. This builds connection rooted in attentiveness. She doesn't feel like she's just filling space with words. She feels heard. And in a world full of noise, being heard is rare and unforgettable. 3. It reflects that you respect what took her time to build. Her mindset-wise formed overnight. The way she thinks likely comes from years of reading, learning, making mistakes, evolving, and gaining perspective. Her emotional intelligence didn't just appear. It was developed often through life experiences, personal growth, and even moments of pain or doubt. So when you say something like "You always have such a grounded way of thinking," you're acknowledging all the unseen effort behind that clarity. You're honoring not just the outcome but the process. And people deeply appreciate when someone recognizes the work they've done on the inside. 4. It separates you from the crowd. The average compliment often centers on beauty. And while that might feel nice in the moment, it fades fast. Especially for women who hear theesome words from countless people. But when you go beyond that and highlight her mind, it sets you apart. Not because you are trying to be different, but because you're being genuine. You're not offering something you think she wants to hear. You're reflecting something you actually noticed. That sincerity stands out. It tells her thought you're someone who sees what others miss, and that sincerity stands out. It tells her that you're someone who sees what others miss. 5. It deepens the emotional connection. When a woman feels admired for her intellect, the connection naturally becomes richer. It moves the conversation away from performance or flattery toward mutual understanding. She starts to open up more. She trusts you more. She lets her guard down, not because you pressured her, but because she feels safe being herself. And that kind of connection can't be faked or rushed. It's built moment by moment through respect and presence. 6. It validates her strength and independence. Complimenting a woman's mind affirms that she is her own person with ideas, opinions, and a sense of direction that doesn't rely on external approval. You're saying, "I like the way you think," not because it agrees with me, but because it shows me who you are. You're not trying to shape her or change her. You're appreciating her as she is. That kind of respect reinforces her confidence and strengthens the bond between you without needing anything more than that simple truth. 7. It shows you value what lasts. Beauty changes over time. Fashion trends shift, faces age, but the mind, that's where a person's depth continues to grow. That's what keeps conversations young, challenges fresh, and mutual growth alive. When you admire her thinking, you're aligning yourself with what lasts. You're saying, what matters to me isn't temporary. It's real, and it's found in you. This shows maturity. It shows clarity, and it often awakens the Sama qualities in return. Number 2, it shows you're paying attention. There's a subtle kind of power that doesn't need to be loud or flashy. It doesn't show off, and it certainly doesn't need constant validation. This kind of power comes from noticing the moment, the people around you, and the little details that often go overlooked. When you pay attention, not just with your ears, but with your full presence, it leaves an impression deeper than you realize. People remember how you made them feel seen, heard, and valued. And when it comes to building meaningful relationships, whether professional, platonic, or romantic, this kind of attentiveness sets you apart. Let's break down the reasons why paying attention matters so much and what it quietly says about you. 1. You see beyond the surface. Most people only react to what's obvious, the loud, the dramatic, the headline moments. But when you're paying attention, you catch the quieter cues. You notice when someone seems a little off, even if they're smiling. You sense hesitation in their voice, the pause before they speak, or the shift in tone. These small observations show emotional intelligence and empathy. When you acknowledge these subtle things gently without making it a spectacle, it signals that you see beyond appearances and that builds trust. 2. It signals presence, not performance. In today's distracted world, full presence is rare. Many people listen just enough to respond, not enough to understand. But when you pay attention, you're not waiting for your turn to speak. You're absorbing. You're in the moment with Simone, not thinking about what comes next. This level of presence isn't about impressing others. It's not performative. It's sincere. And sincerity is magnetic. 3. You remember the little things. One of the most powerful ways to show you're paying attention is by remembering details others forget. Someone mentions they have a big meeting on Thursday, and you asked how it went the following week. Or they casually share their favorite author, and you later bring up a quote from that writer in conversation. These gestures aren't grand or expensive, but they mean a lot. They say, I heard you, I valued what you shared, you matter enough for me to remember. 4. You respond, not just react. When you're paying attention, you don't jump to conclusions. You don't assume. You observe carefully and respond thoughtfully. That ability to pause and reflect before reacting sets you apart in a world full of impulsive behavior. It shows emotional maturity, the kind that brings calm into conversations rather than chaos. 5. You show respect without needing to say it. Paying attention is a form of respect. When you listen without interrupting, when you ask follow-up questions, when you give someone space to share without rushing them, you're communicating a deep respect for their voice and experience. You don't need to announce your values or good intentions. The way you listen speaks louder. Onward. 6. You build unspoken rapport. When someone feels that you really get them, even without them having to explain everything in detail, a quiet connection begins to grow. This doesn't happen through speeches or flattery. It happens through attentiveness. The small nods, the affirming silence, the timely gesture. These create a bond that's often more meaningful than long. 7. You create a safe environment. When someone knows you're paying attention without judgment, they feel safe opening up. You become a person they can trust, not because you promise it, but because you consistently show it. This safety is rare. It's healing, and often, it's exactly what someone needs. Not advice, not solutions, but simply a space where they feel acknowledged. 8. You don't miss the moments that matter. Sometimes the most important moments in someone's life aren't obvious. A quiet accomplishment, a difficult decision, a brave step forward no one else noticed. When you're paying attention, you don't miss these things. You congratulate them when no one else does. You encourage them when others overlook it. And that makes you stand out, not for seeking credit, but for offering genuine support. 9. You lead without dominating. The best leaders aren't the loudest ones in the room. They're the ones who listen the most. When you pay attention, people naturally look to you for guidance. Why? Because they feel heard around you. They feel understood. And that's where real influence begins. You don't have to dominate a conversation to lead one. You just have to care enough to truly listen and respond. 10. You give the gift of being seen. At the core of it all, paying attention is one of the simplest yet most profound gifts you can give another person. In a world where so many feel invisible, overlooked, or dismissed, you offer there a gift of being seen, and that doesn't go unnoticed. People remember how you made them feel even long after the words are forgotten. 11. You reinforce emotional intelligence. Paying attention isn't about just memory. It's about noticing emotional shifts, unspoken tensions, and the way people hold themselves. Are they withdrawing? Are they leaning in? Are they really okay when they say they are? By tuning in, you show emotional depth. You prove that you're not just physically present, you're emotionally attuned. 12. You inspire others to be more present. 2. Attentiveness is contagious. When someone experienced being truly listened to, they're more likely to offer the same in return. You'll create a ripple effect. Conversations become more thoughtful. Number 3. It speaks to her self-respect. There's a reason the compliment, "I admire the way you think," hits different. It's not about flattery. It's not about charm. It's not even about being clever. It's about acknowledging a truth she quietly carries, that her minda is something she values, something she's proud of, and something she's worked hard to develop. When you see that and speak to it, you aren't just being kind. You're speaking directly to her self-respect, and that earns her attention on a completely different level. Here's why this matters more than most men realize. 1. She values who she's become, not just how she appears. For many women, self-respect is built on not compliment they receive, but on the inner work they've done, learning from mistakes, developing emotional intelligence, thinking critically and independently, discovering what matters to them. When you notice the results of that inner work, her clarity, her reasoning, her world of view, you're honoring her, you're letting her know you see her, not just the external version others react to. That kind of recognition aligns with how she already views herself. It affirms the identity she's built quietly and intentionally over time. Number 2, it's not about earning approval. It's about being aligned with her values. Women with self-respect don't chase validation, especially not shallow attention. What they're drawn to alignment, someone who reflects their values, respects their thinking, and sees them as a whole person. When you say something like, "That's a really thoughtful way to look at it. I never would have considered it that way. You have a sharp mind. I admire how you didn't just accept things at face value." You're not praising her to get something. You're resonating with her. You're meeting her on a level where she actually lives, not just how she looks in a moment. And that kind of interaction, that's rare, and it sticks. Number 3, she knows her thoughts matter. You're showing that you know it, too. A woman with self-respect doesn't text everyone to agree with her, but she expects to be heard thoughtfully, honestly, respectfully. So when you reflect back your admiration for the way her mind works, not just what she says, but how she processes, how she navigates, how she thinks, she feels safe to be herself, respected for more than surface impressions, seen in a way that affirms her inner self. It tells her, you're not here to consume her, you're here to connect with her. That's a very different energy, and it's one that emotionally mature women respond to. Number 4, it affirms her integrity. Self-respecting women make choices guided by principles, not popularity. So, when you admire her way of thinking, especially when it reflects courage, conviction, or insight, you're recognizing something sacred. To her, her integrity. You're saying, I respect how you stand by your values. Your way of thinking isn't just smart, it's principled. It's refreshing to talk to Zimian, who doesn't just repeat what everyone else says. These aren't pickup lines, these are acknowledgments of character, and that's something a woman with self-respect holds in the highest regard. Number 5, you're not trying to impress her. You're treating her as an equal. When you speak to her intellect and respect the way she thinks, you're not placing her on a pedestal or towing her approval. You're leveling the playing field. You're saying without words, you don't need to prove yourself to me. I already see what's valuable about you. And that disarms her, in a good way, because so many interactions are transactional or performative, but this one is grounded in authenticity. She doesn't have to earn your interest, and you're not performing for hers. You're just meeting each other, human to human, mind to mind. Number 6, it makes her feel safe to be her full self. When a woman senses that she's respected for her thinking, she relaxes. She doesn't need to edit herself to be more agreeable, pretend to be impressed, say what she thinks you want to hear. She can express herself honestly, fully, and without fear of judgment. That's what happens when her self-respect is matched, not just acknowledged. In that kind of space, real connection begins to grow because no one has to hide. Number 7. It communicates emotional maturity on your part. A man who compliments a woman's mind is showing something about himself, too. He's not afraid of strong opinions, he's not intimidated by intelligence, he's not looking to control the interaction, he's looking to understand. That kind of emotional maturity tells her she's dealing with someone secure in himself, and to a woman with self-respect, that's attractive in the deepest way because she doesn't have to shrink or shrink you to feel safe. Number 8. It's not about being right, it's about being real. Sometimes when a woman offers a new perspective, she doesn't need you to agree, she just needs you to see her point. When you tell her, I admire the way you think, you're acknowledging the quality of her thinking, not just the outcome. You're saying, I don't need to control your view, I respect how your mind works. Even if we land in different places, your clarity matters, even if it challenges me. This builds mutual respect, the kind of respect that would last surface attraction. Number 4. It's rare in a world of superficial praise. In today's fast-moving world of curated profiles, exaggerated accolades, and instant likes, compliments are everywhere, but sincerity is not. Praise has become so casual, so quick, and so performative that we've started to forget what it feels like to receive something genuine. That's why when someone offers you a compliment that feels true, that seems to reflect a deeper understanding of you, it stands out, it lingers, it echoes long after the words are spoken. This kind of phrase is rare, and that rarity is what makes it powerful. Number 1. Superficial praise is common but doesn't touch the soul. Social media has made praise feel transactional. Post a picture, get a fire emoji. Share a story and someone responds with amazing even if they didn't read past the first sentence. It's easy, it's reactive, and while it might momentarily boost your ego, it doesn't reach deeper than that. That kind of flattery is like fast food, quick, convenient, and forgettable. It fills the space, but not your spirit. True praise, on the other hand, takes more effort. It requires observation, attention, and often restraint. It means someone has looked past what's obvious and seen something worth appreciating, not because they want to impress you, but because they noticed. Number 2. Real praise doesn't sound like everyone else. What makes sincere recognition so impactful is that it often comes from a unique place, not a copyright version of what others say. When someone really pays attention to you, your habits, your thoughtfulness, your integrity, their compliments sounds different. Instead of you look great, it might be you bring a calm energy into the room that makes people feel safe. Instead of you're smart, it could be the way you simplify complex problems, shows how deeply you understand them. These aren't generic statements. They're tailored, specific, and they're. Number 3, it comes from presence, not performance. A rare, genuine compliment is not born from trying to win favor. It's not flattery with an agenda. It's born from someone being present with you. They were listening not just to your words, but to your tone, your pauses, your silences. They were watching not just your gestures but your consistency, your treatment of others, your quiet convictions. That kind of presence is hard to come by. It means they were with you in the moment, not scrolling through distractions or crafting a mental response while you spoke. And when someone is that present, what they say matters more because it's rooted in truth. Number 4, it's risky. That's why it feels real. One reason rare praise feels so impactful is because it carries a lot of emotional risk. It's not always easy to tell someone, I admire how resilient you are, or, you bring integrity to every room you enter. There's vulnerability in being honest, even when the message is positive. That's why so many people hide behind humor or vague praise. It feels safer. But when someone takes the risk of offering you a compliment that's vulnerable, it lands with weight. It feels earned, and you remember it not because of how it was said, but because of what it revealed about you and about them. Number 5, it recognizes who you are, not just what you do. A rare compliment doesn't just applaud your actions, it reflects something deeper. Your values, your presence, your way of moving through the world. You always make people feel like they matter, even when no one's watching. You bring peace into tense situations, and I admire that. You have a strength that doesn't need to announce itself. These aren't compliments about results, they're a butracta, and that's what makes them so deeply meaningful. They can about who you are, not just what you've achieved. Number 6, it often comes quietly, not in front of a crowd. The rarest compliments don't always arrive with applause or fanfare. In fact, they're often shared in quiet moments. A brief sentence in a hallway, a note in a message, a thoughtful reflection long after the interaction. That's part of what makes them special. They weren't said for show. They were said for you privately, respectfully, authentically. It's the kind of recognition that feels sacred, not flashy, just real. Number 7, it can shift how you see yourself. One sincere compliment, just one, has its power to shift your perspective, not in an arrogant way, but in a clarifying. Sometimes we forget our value, we overlook our quiet strengths or dismiss our small daily efforts as unremarkable. But then, someone says something that cuts through all your self-doubts. You handled that with so much grace. You noticed you bring calm into tense situations, and I admire that. You made a difference today, and probably more than you know. Suddenly you remember you see yourself again, and that reflection stays with you. It gives you courage, direction, affirmation. Number 8, it reflects a deeper connection, not just an opinion. Rare praise isn't just a comment. It's often a reflection of the connection you've built with someone, even if it's subtle. It signals that someone truly sees you, not just the image you present, but the substance underneath. It's not always romantic. It's not even always intimate, but it is always respectful, grounded, and thoughtful. And it stays with you because it didn't come from thin air. It came from knowing you in a way that felt safe, sincere, and honest. Number 9, you don't get it every day, and that's why it matters. We live in a time where we hear amazing, incredible, and legend thrown around so casually that those words have lost weight. But when someone gives you praise that's real, that isn't rehearsed or social expect, it cuts through the noise. It's rare, but it's also enough. A genuine comment can last longer than 100 shallow ones because it wasn't based on mood or manners. It was based on truth. And in a world full of noise, truth always rings louder. And finally, here's the most beautiful part. You can't be the one to offer this kind of rare praise to others. All it takes is presence, courage, and sincerity. Watch carefully, speak honestly, give a recognition without needing anything in return. Let someone know that they were seen, truly seen, and that what you saw moved you. You never know how long they'll carry your words with them, but chances are, if they were rare and real, they'll never forget. Number 5, it invites deeper conversation. When you compliment a woman by saying something like, "I admire the way you think," you aren't just offering a kind word, you're extending an invitation. An invitation to open up, to express, to connect on a level beyond what most people offer in casual conversation. It's the kind of compliment that gently says, "I'm listening, I'm interested in what's beneath the surface, and I value how you are, not just what I see." Let's break down why this specific type of compliment is so powerful in deepening a conversation, and how it builds trust, presence, and 1. It signals emotional availability. When you acknowledge a woman's thoughts, reflections, or insights, you're sending a signal. You're emotionally available, not just physically present. You're showing that you're open to dialogue that's thoughtful, curious, and reflective. You're not looking to steer the conversation towards small talk or flattery. You're genuinely open to learning who she is, not just what she does. This sense of openness creates a safe emotional space, one where she can be herself without feeling like she's being judged, rushed, or put on display. 2. It creates a pause worth stepping into. In most conversations, people talk at each other, instead of with each other. But when you say something meaningful, like the way you explained that really got me thinking, you create a moment that invites her to step in and go deeper. She likely pause, think, and respond with something real. Because you weren't just making noise, you offered something sincere. That pause, that breath of thoughtful energy, that's where real conversation begins. 3. It helps her feel safe, sharing more. When a woman feels like you value her thinking, her voice, and her insights, she naturally starts to relax. Walls come down. Words start to flow, and what began as a compliment becomes a dialogue. You may find her opening up about things that matter to her, her passions, values, struggles, or observations, not because she's trying to impress you, but because she senses you actually care. And in a world where many people talk but don't really listen, Your column attention stands out for it shifts the focus from impressing to understanding. Most conversations, especially early ones, can feel like a subtle competition for attention or validation. But when you offer a compliment rooted in genuine respect, you subtly shift the dynamic. Instead of trying to impress each other, you're trying to understand each other. You're no longer worried about saying the right thing. Instead, you're learning about each other's inner world. This builds emotional depth, not just social chemistry, and emotional depth is what makes conversations memorable. 5. It turns a moment into an actor. Imagine you tell her, you see things in such a unique way, I would have never looked at it like that. You might think that's just a passing comment, but to her, it's a door opening. It tells her she's free to share more, that she's not being talked over or overlooked. But you are not just waiting for your turn to speak. It turns a casual moment into something more lasting. And when two people connect through presence and mutual curiosity, something begins to build, something respectful, quiet, and real. 6. It encourages her to ask questions too. Thoughtful compliments often lead to thoughtful responses. When you validate her ideas or perspective, it naturally leads her to ask about yours. She'll want to know what made you think that. Have you always seen things that way? What's your take on it? And now the conversation becomes mutual, not a monologue, not a performance, but an exchange. That's the foundation of meaningful interaction. 7. It plants the seed of trust. When someone feels heard, they begin to trust. They trust your presence, your patience, your intention. And trust is what allows deeper emotions to unfold. By complimenting a woman's thoughts rather than just her appearance, you're showing that your interest isn't rooted in fleeting impressions. It's rooted in something steadier, respect, understanding, and the desire to know her as a whole person. That's what makes a compliment like this rare, and that's what makes it stay with her long after the words are spoken. Number 6. With emotional maturity. There's a compliment that resonates on a level far deeper than charm or attraction. One that doesn't just flatter, it reflects understanding. That compliment, you seem emotionally mature. It's not flashy, it's not flirty, but it carries weight because emotional maturity is something that's felt, noticed, and deeply respected, especially by people who have outgrown the noise of drama and surface-level interactions. Let's explore why this compliment speaks volumes and why it often strikes a chord with those who receive it. 1. It reflects inner growth, not just outer behavior. Emotional maturity isn't about age, it's about awareness. When you tell someone they're emotionally mature, you're acknowledging the work they've done on themselves. You're noticing that they've gone through things, reflected on them, and come out stronger, not harder. It's someone who responds instead of reacts. Someone who knows how to hold space for others without making everything about themselves. This kind of compliment shows that you see their internal development, not just how they show up on the outside. And for someone who is invested in that growth, that means everything. 2. It speaks to self-control in a world full of impulses. We live in an age where instant reactions, emotional outbursts, and online venting are normalized. So when someone is under pressure or chooses grace over retaliation, it stands out. When you say you seem emotionally mature, you're recognizing that discipline. You're telling them, I see how intentional you are in the way you carry yourself. It's not about perfection. It's about responsibility for their emotions, their words, and their actions. This isn't something that happens by accident. It's a conscious choice, and being seen for that choice resonates deeply. 3. It honors someone's ability to navigate conflict with compassion. Emotionally mature people don't avoid conflict, they handle it with care. They listen before they speak. They don't aim to win arguments, but to understand and move forward. When you offer this compliment, you're often recognizing someone who chooses connection over control, someone who can sit in uncomfortable conversations without shutting down or becoming defensive, someone who leads with clarity, not chaos. That kind of emotional steadiness, it's not just admirable, it's magnetic in a quiet, grounded way. 4. It honors quiet strength over loud dominance. The world often rewards loud voices, strong opinions, and people who dominate a room. But emotional maturity is quieter. It doesn't demand attention, it earns respect. Complimenting someone's emotional maturity means acknowledging their depth, their patience, their ability to observe before speaking, and to consider the impact of their words. It's a nod to their quiet strength, the kind That doesn't need to prove itself to be powerful. For many people, especially those who have had to tone themselves down or manage others' emotional volatility, this compliment is a breath of fresh air. 5. It shows you value depth over drama. Let's face it, some compliments are designed to impress, but this one is designed to connect. When you tell someone they're emotionally mature, you're telling them you value emotional intelligence, personal responsibility, and kindness with boundaries. You're showing that you're paying attention not just to how they look or what they say, but how they live. This opens the door to deeper conversations and more meaningful relationships. It says, I'm here for something real. That's rare, and it matters. 6. It affirms their effort to heal, reflect, and evolve. People who are emotionally mature didn't get that way by accident. They've often endured pain, made mistakes, and done a hard work of growth. They've learned from heartbreak, handled disappointment, and developed emotional tools instead of building walls. When you offer this compliment, it can feel like recognition for all the internal battles they've fought, the late nights they spent sorting through their feelings, the restraint they've practiced, the grace they've offered even when it wasn't. It's not just flattering, it's healing. 7. It encourages more authentic interactions. When someone is seen as emotionally mature, they're often expected to be the strong one, the one who understands, forgives, and shows up even when others don't. That's a beautiful strength, but it can also be lonely. A sincere compliment about their emotional maturity opens the door to reciprocity. It shows them they don't always have to carry the weight that you notice, appreciate, and are capable of meeting them at their level. That's rare, and it matters. 8. It resonates with people who choose peace over power. Some people seek dominance in relationships, others seek harmony. Emotional maturity often reflects a choice to choose peace, not because they're afraid of conflict, but because they've learned it's more powerful to build bridges than burn them. This compliment tells them you see that you value how they protect their peace, not by avoiding life, but by facing it with intention. You're not admiring their passivity. You're respecting their ability to manage chaos without becoming it. 9. It tells them you feel safe around them. Emotionally mature people create environments where others feel safe. They don't manipulate, they don't judge quickly, they listen. They respond with thought, not force. When you say you seem emotionally mature, it's often because you feel it. You feel more relaxed in their presence, more heard, less guarded. This isn't always easy to articulate, but when you give voice to it, it can be one of the most affirming things they've heard. 10. It's a compliment that lasts. There are compliments that fade after a few minutes, then there are compliments that echo. Telling someone they're emotionally mature isn't just saying something nice. It's offering insight into how you perceive their presence, values, and emotional steadiness. It's a form of respect that lingers, especially for someone who has worked hard to become who they are, and that matters more than you may realize. 7. It gives her the confidence to be herself. There is a quiet, powerful shift that happens when a woman feels emotionally safe in your presence. She no longer feels the need to perform, impress, or second guesses herself. She relaxes, she breathes deeper, and most importantly, she becomes more fully herself. This doesn't happen because you showered her with compliments, or chased her with intensity. It happens because of how you show up with calm presence, steady energy, and genuine interest. When a woman feels emotionally support without pressure or pretense, she begins to unfold in front of you. And when she does, you see a side of her that not everyone gets to witness. Let's explore the subtle but powerful reasons why you giving her the space and confidence to be herself has such a lasting impact and why it matters more than you think. 1. She doesn't feel judged. One of the most common reasons people hide their real selves, not just women, is the fear of being judged. Whether it's about how she thinks, what she enjoys, or how she expresses her emotions, many women have been dismissed or misunderstood in subtle ways throughout their lives. But when you're around her, and your energy is calm, accepting, and open-minded, something shifts. She doesn't have to explain herself. She doesn't have to tone herself down. She doesn't have to hide her quirks. You're not criticizing. You're not correcting. You're simply there, present, receptive, and quietly affirming. That lack of judgment opens the door for authenticity. And when a woman feels she can be fully herself without fear of disapproval, that's when her real light begins. Out 2. You're not trying to fix her. A common mistake many men make, often with good intentions, is offering solutions she shares, something vulnerable. But emotional safety doesn't come from being fixed. It comes from being heard. When you listen without rushing toward this. When you ask thoughtful questions instead of jumping to conclusions. When you let her feel what she's feeling without trying to change it, you're telling her, you're allowed to feel this. You're allowed to process in your own way. I'm here with you, not above you. That kind of patience is rare and deeply grounding. It gives her the confidence to express even the messy, unsure parts of herself, because she knows you're not trying to control the outcome. You're simply offering space. 3. Your presence feels grounded, not demanding. A grounded man doesn't seek reassurance. He's not clingy, reactive, or performing to get. He's calm. He listens more than he talks. He observes more than hesitates. And when you bring that kind of steady energy into a room, it acts as an excellent invitation for her to do the same. She doesn't have to entertain you. She doesn't have to analyze every reaction. She doesn't have to earn your attention. Instead, she feels she can simply exist, talk when she wants, be quiet when she needs, and still feel connected. That kind of non-demanding presence is where real trust is built. That's second a foundation, where people want to be real because they know their realness will be met with respect. 4. You reflect her strengths back to her. There's something deeply affirming about being seen for the qualities you hope others notice. Your kindness, your thoughtfulness, your creativity, when you reflect those qualities back to a woman, sincerely and without exaggeration, it strengthens her self-image. You're not praising her, towing her over. You're simply saying, I noticed that about you, and I respect it. That helps her own those traits more fully. It reminds her that the best parts of herself aren't hidden. They're visible, appreciated, and worthy, often shared. 5. She knows you're not competing with her. Some people, consciously or not, enter relationships with a need to dominate, to outshine, to be the one who's always right, or to have the final word. But when you interact from a place of quiet confidence, not competition, you let her know that her voice matters. You're not threatened by her intelligence. You're not dismissive of her insights. You don't interrupt just to redirect the conversation back to herself. That makes her feel like an equal, not a spectator. When she knows that she can share ideas, emotions, or perspectives with you, and they'll be taken seriously, it builds a deep kind of safety. That's the kind of foundation where people want to be real because they know their realness will be met. Respect. 6. You respect her boundaries without making it awkward. A woman who feels the need to constantly explain her no will never fully relax. But when you demonstrate that you not only hear her boundaries, but honor them without question or tension, she feels safe to trust her instincts. Maybe she's not ready to talk about something. Maybe she needs space. Maybe she has a different opinion. When you receive that without sulking, pushing, or taking it personally, she learns, I'm allowed to open myself here, even when I disagree or need time or feel unsure. That tells you you're mature, that you're emotionally regulated, that she doesn't have to walk on eggshells around you. That confidence, it grows the more she feels respected. 7. She doesn't feel like she has to prove her worth. Many women, especially those who are successful or emotionally intelligent, are used to being evaluated, sometimes subtly, sometimes tenderly. In some interactions, they're made to feel like they need to justify how they're lovable, intelligent, or worthy of attention. But when she's around you and you're genuinely interested in her as she is, that pressure dissolves. She's not auditioning for a role. She's not trying to impress you with achievements. She's simply showing up and you're meeting her there. That kind of relaxed mutual interest leads to deeper connection, not through performance, but through presence. 8. You accept her quiet moments. 2. Everyone has moments where they need to be quiet, reflective, still. When you accept even welcome those pauses rather than trying to fill them with noise or questions, you give her something rare, permission to breathe. You're not just silence. You understand that connection doesn't always require constant interaction. This makes her feel she doesn't need to entertain you. And in that silence she learns that she can just be herself, even when words aren't flowing. That's where deep comfort lives. 9. You're consistent. Nothing builds confidence like emotional consistency. When your tone, your presence, and your actions are steady, not hot one day and cold the next, she begins to trust that your interest isn't conditional. You didn't disappear when things aren't exciting. You don't suddenly become distant when she sets boundaries, or show up the same way, whether she's joyful, emotional, thoughtful, or uncertain. That stability doesn't just make her feel safe, it gives her the confidence to show all sides of herself, not just the polished ones. 10. You value her for who she is, not what she can give you. At the core of every meaningful connection is this simple truth. We want to be valued for not just what we offer. When your interest in her isn't tied to what she does for you, when your respect doesn't rise or fall based on how much gives, when you show genuine curiosity and care regardless of outcomes, she senses that your presence isn't transactional, it's relational. That's where her confidence grows, because she knows she's not being used, she's being welcomed. Number 8, she remembers how you made her feel. Long after the words are forgotten, long after time and distance have created space, what often lingers in someone's shirt is not what you said, but how you made them feel. For women especially, feelings become emotional markers, silent reminders that replay in memory and resurfaced when least expected. She may forget the small talk, the setting, even the exact reason you met, but she remembers the feeling. This isn't about grand gestures or poetic declarations. It's about presence, authenticity, the little things that showed her who you are, and, more importantly, how you saw her. And once you make someone feel something meaningful, that feeling settles quietly inside them, far beyond surface-level attraction. Let's explore why she remembers how you made her feel, and why it matters more than you realize. 1. Emotional imprints last longer than words. Feelings outlive facts. We forget what someone said, but we remember how they made us feel in their presence. Seen, understood, valued, or even dismissed. Women in particular are intuitive processors of emotion. They pick up on tiny subtle shifts, in expression, and undercurrents of attention or distraction. When you made her feel at ease, genuinely listened, or gave her the space to be herself, those moments registered on a deeper emotional level. It becomes more than memory, it becomes emotional association. She may smile months later thinking of that one moment where she felt genuinely understood. 2. The small details carry the most weight. It's rarely the obvious moments that echo. It's the unspoken gestures, the pauses in conversation, the way you looked at her while she talked. These are not always conscious recollections, but emotional flashes that play like silent films in the background of memory. Did you notice when she was overwhelmed and didn't say anything? Did you give her your attention without needing anything in return? Those little details communicate something profound, that she mattered, that her feelings weren't too much, that you weren't just passing time with her. You were fully present, and people remember presence. 3. Safety leaves an impression. Emotional safety is a rare gift. When she could speak freely without fear of being judged. When she could laugh without filtering herself. Or, when she could sit in silence with you, and not feel the need to fill it. That safety etched itself into memory. Maybe you weren't perfect, but you were calm, or grounded, or kind, and those qualities gave her something to trust, even if for a while. When a woman feels emotionally safe around someone, she remembers it like a home she didn't realize she was looking for. For the energy you brought stays with her. Every interaction carries a tone, a frequency. Were you chaotic or calm? Open or guarded? Warm or cold? Whether you meant to or not, you left an impression based on your emotional energy. She may not know what you wore or what you said, but she remembered if your presence made her feel calm, energized, inspired, or grounded. Just as someone can drain your energy, others uplift it without. If she ever walked away from your presence feeling better about herself or the world, she won't forget it. 5. Authenticity creates resonance. When you're not trying to impress her, when you're just being real, that's what resonates. She remembers sincerity, the moments when you didn't pretend, when you didn't perform, when you weren't trying to win anything. In a world full of filters, realness cuts through the noise. Even if things didn't progress, even if life moved on, she remembers that you were present without pretense. That's rare, and rarity gets remembered. 6. Your silence may have spoken. 2. Sometimes it wasn't what you said or did, but what you didn't. You didn't dismiss her. You didn't rush her feelings. That kind of restraint, subtle as it may be, leaves a quiet mark. When you allowed her to just be without expectation, without pressure, she felt something unusual freedom, and people don't forget the feeling of being unburdened. 7. Timing adds weight to emotion. When people meet at the right or wrong time, the emotional charge increases. If you made her feel something meaningful during a vulnerable or transitional period in her life, that feeling became a saving more imprinted. She may associate your presence with a turning point or outcome during emotional chaos. You may have been a reminder of something bigger, hope, clarity, or even inner peace, and that reflection of timing makes her memory of how you made her feel more potent. 8. You reflected something back to her. Sometimes people come into our lives not just to teach us, but to reflect back who we are or who we're becoming. You may have reflected back to her strength, her softness, her courage, or her depth. And whether she ever said it out loud or not, she saw herself differently because of how you treated her. When someone helps you feel more yourself, not less, that person stays with you, not an obsession, but in quiet gratitude. And for many women, that feeling lingers long after physical presence fades. 9. You felt a shift in your presence. A woman can sense when something is different, when your attention is focused, when your walls are down, or when you genuinely care. If you were emotionally grounded around her, if you weren't just scanning for attention, but were there, truly there. She noticed that shift in energy from surface level to depth creates a memorable interaction, one that she revisits in thought, not because she misses you, but because it mattered. 10. Your exit left an emotional echo. Even if things didn't last or ended quietly, the absence of your emotional presence might still echo in her life, not because she's dwelling, but because what you made her feel hasn't been easily replaced or replicated. There's a reason some people come to mind years later. It's not about long and gore unfinished business. It's about the subtle, steady feeling of meaning that remains, and meaning is unforgettable. Number 9. It affirms her inner work. The compliment that reaches deeper than you know. There's a kind of recognition that doesn't shout, doesn't flatter, and doesn't seek attention. It simply says, I see what you've built within yourself. It's a quiet compliment, a rare one. But to a woman who has worked hard on becoming emotionally stronger, wiser, and more grounded, it means everything. When you genuinely admire a woman's way of thinking, her outlook, or her emotional depth, what you're realizing is affirming the inner work she's done, and that hits different. Her growth didn't happen overnight. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't always supported, but it shaped the woman she is today. And when Simeon recognizes that, it goes far beyond surface admiration. 1. Most of her work was done in silence. Inner work is often invisible. It doesn't show up on social media. There are no applause breaks. No one sees the night she chose growth over comfort, reflection over reaction. She took the time to heal from old patterns. She learned to set boundaries where there once were none. She started trusting her voice even if it shook. When you notice how calm she stays during tension or how thoughtful her responses are, you're witnessing results of that work. And if you mention that you appreciate how she thinks or navigates life, you're honoring that silent effort in a way most people never do. 2. She's been through a journey. You may never know. You don't have to know every detail of her past to appreciate the strength she carries now. But when you say something like, I really respect how self-aware you are, you're very grounded, it's noticeable. You seem to have a really strong sense of self. It tells her, I don't need the whole story to respect where you've landed. You're not poking at her wounds. You're simply recognizing the wisdom she gained from them. That kind of compliment gives her space to feel proud of who she's become without needing to explain why. 3. It validates what she values most in herself. Many women value emotional clarity and self-standing even more than external sex or attractiveness. They've worked hard to be kinder to themselves, clearer in their decisions, less reactive, more thoughtful. But here's the thing, the world often doesn't notice that work. It rewards the loud, the visible, the glamorous. So when you compliment her mindset, her resilience, her thoughtful presence, you're validating something she already values deeply in herself. It's not flattery, it's alignment, for it makes her feel seen beyond roles or expectations. Women are often boxed into roles, the Karojava, the professional, the friend, the partner, the daughter. People see what they do, not always who they are. But inner work isn't about performing for others. It's about realigning with your own values. It's about coming home to yourself. So when you recognize her character, her clarity, her balance, you're not complimenting what the world expects from her. You're appreciating who she's chosen to become for herself. That feels personal, safe, and genuine. 5. It signals that you're emotional processed. 2. To recognize a woman's inner work, you have to be doing some of your own. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you notice things most people miss. The way she pauses before reacting, the strength behind her kindness, the calm in her energy when things get difficult. That kind of awareness isn't typical. And she'll know immediately that you're speaking with someone who values growth, not performance. In return, she'll feel more comfortable showing the truest parts of herself. Bacchus, now you see with depth. 6. You're not just admiring her, you're respecting her effort. This kind of compliment isn't about flattery. It's not about saying you're amazing to get attention or approval. It's about respect. When you affirm her inner work, what you are really saying is, I know self-respect doesn't come easily. I see how far you've come, even if you don't talk about it. You carry wisdom, patently comes from experience. That respect stays with her. She may smile politely in the moment, but inside she feels it, and she remembers who saw her, not for her role, not for her appearance, but for herself. 8. It builds trust, not just connection. When you recognize a woman's emotional or intellectual growth, you're giving her a signal. You don't have to shrink yourself here. You're not intimidated by her strength or threatened by her clarity. Instead, you admire it. And that admiration creates trust, because now she knows she doesn't have to hide the parts of herself that took the longest to build. She doesn't have to downplay her insight, soften her boundaries, or dim her intelligence. She can just be herself fully because you see what's real, not just what's easy. 8. It strengthens the foundation for your bonding. Surface compliments might spark attraction, but compliments that affirm a woman's inner work create something far more powerful. Alignment. That's what deep relationships with a friendship or more are built on. When a woman feels that you respect her emotional depth, understand her personal growth, and value her authentic self, she doesn't just connect with you. She respects you because you've shown emotional maturity, the kind that invites openness, trust, and shared meaning. And that is